Welcome back to another curse video, which is pretty apt seeing as we'll be talking a lot about curses in this one, so right up my alley and hopefully yours. Going to do a deep dive into the brilliance that is Jujutsu Kaisen, and if you haven't heard of it, well, you're missing out, and I'm here to right that wrong. It feels like an anime like this only comes around once in a blue moon, and good lord, I am here for it. In this video, I'm going to be discussing what Jujutsu Kaisen is and what makes it popular. I've seen a lot of people argue for and against Jujutsu Kaisen and its standing as potentially the ultimate shonen that will go down in history, and the other side of how it completely subverts our understanding of shonen over the years, particularly in the last decade. For anyone who is unfamiliar with what a shonen is, originally it described a demographic of boys for whom those shows were intended for between the ages of 12 to 18 years old. Its direct translation is boy in Japanese. Clearly, I am a prepubescent teenage boy. A lot of shonen anime over the years actually have made their starts in weekly serialized manga that found their place in Japan's weekly Shonen Jump. A lot of the popular titles made their starts there, such as Naruto, One Piece, My Hero Academia, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Demon Slayer, Jujutsu Kaisen, and many more. When I watched the first few episodes of Jujutsu Kaisen, knowing absolutely nothing about the show at the time, I couldn't help but think and constantly make connections to Bleach and Naruto, and I think a lot of people did too. It's completely normal that a lot of modern authors and artists will draw inspiration from a classic series that came before them. It's what they do to add to this original recipe that makes it unique. I find myself making comparisons whenever I'm watching something new to something that came before, and it helps me process and make connections to things that I've consumed in the past to highlight what it is this piece of media has to potentially offer. Will it reinvent the wheel or help it keep rotating as it was? There were a lot of similarities, such as the curses that you could compare to hollows in Bleach, or the uplifting main protagonist that has a powerful being living inside of him, alongside a cast of charismatic characters who also possess incredible powers and are much like him, for example. The creator JJ Akutami even said that they were inspired by Tite Kubo, the famed creator of Bleach. Also, to my surprise and confusion, Akutami in an interview even said, "One of my influences was Evangelion. I was made aware of biblical myths through this." I don't really understand the correlation of Eva with Jujutsu Kaisen, but perhaps they're referring to things that happen further down the line in the manga of Jujutsu. Unless I'm missing something, let me know what you guys think in the comments. However, once the surface level stuff was out of the way, Jujutsu Kaisen started to shine and really show how it can be very different from a lot of shonens out there. You gotta deep root that foundation before you can even think of building the house. And Jujutsu Kaisen does that pretty well without taking 100 episodes to do it, or sacrificing story to give it to us snappy. Jujutsu Kaisen is compelling and offers an array of really unique characters that accompany the main protagonist. But not only that, the plot is extremely fascinating, with the weight of the world at stake, but only to those who know of this threat that lurks in the shadows. It feels like the tension levels of the show are in constant flux of calm and tension. But the calm never really lasts. It's only to literally brace for impact of what's about to happen. It's pretty much always at DEFCON 1. But before we dive into what exactly Jujutsu Kaisen is, let's look at some high-level facts. The Dark Fantasy series started publishing in March 2018 in Weekly Shonen Jump, and by October 2020, a single season consisting of 24 episodes started to air, which made both mediums do extremely well for one another. By 2020, Jujutsu Kaisen had sold over 8.5 million copies, and by October 2021, the manga had over 55 million copies in circulation. Safe to say it's done really well. When a really good adaptation of a manga is born, that can usually make the franchise as a whole skyrocket and garner a massive spike in popularity. I, for one, have time and time again, once watching an incredible anime, will go and seek out the source material and give the manga a go. Usually, it is the case that a manga will always be ahead of the anime, as it almost always comes first. but I usually get impatient and start reading ahead in the manga, even if I started with the anime. Whenever I start a new anime, I don't choose it lightly, and the reason for that is I will almost always go out and buy the physical manga. It's a huge investment for me on so many levels, which is why I don't recommend this to people willy-nilly for the same reason. As per usual, I will try and give you guys the high-level information around the show without going too much into spoiler territory. If anything spoilery comes from the video, it will most likely be from the first episode of the anime to give context around characters, plot, and setting. Now, let's move on to what is Jujutsu Kaisen. The premise of Jujutsu Kaisen is a pretty simple concept, but one that is certainly impactful. One of deep and meaningful brilliance, incredible action, and just an overwhelming display of badassery from its characters that make you ooh and ah anytime you see them do anything. It's a supernatural horror shonen manga series by JJ Akutami, which then got developed into an anime, as mentioned before. The world is inhabited by cursed energy, which is born from any form of negative feelings felt by humans, such as hatred, fear, grief, you name it, which in turn seek to harm said humans. In other words, it's basically evil personified and physical. Once those negative emotions get aggravated and excessive, a cursed spirit is created. Seeing as they're a byproduct of humanity, they are found more commonly in highly populated environments, filled to the brim with human emotions. It takes place in an urban fantasy setting, and in this world exists Jujutsu sorcerers, also known as shamans, who are tasked with exorcising and banishing these curses. Jujutsu sorcerers are capable of manipulating curse energy in order to combat against them in different forms with the end goal of exorcising them. And I don't mean in the let's get physical into shape kind of exercising, although that would be pretty amusing. The series revolves around Yuji Itadori, a high school student with a heart of gold and the good-hearted values that you would expect from a typical shonen main protagonist. Yuji has a strong moral compass, however the driving vehicle that goes hand in hand to progress the story is his grandfather, the only living relative he had before passing. He told his grandson to use his weirdly unnatural strength to help others and be good to people. Yuji, who just so happens to be an occult enthusiast, one late night at school with his friends come across a cursed object, a finger of Sukuna that belonged to a legendary, terrifying, and extremely powerful demon, also known as the King of Curses, Ryomen Sukuna. This is no ordinary shriveled finger, as it's known to contain a portion of his power. The cursed finger starts to attract curses who want to consume the ancient artifact and gain its power. Just to give context on curses, and curse energy by the way, normal humans can't see them, and are therefore none the wiser that they even exist, aside from the aforementioned negative energy that they feel and can sometimes sense around them. An example of this can be seen in episode 13, an exchange between Nanami and a girl who worked at a bakery he frequents. He comments that she seems more fatigued than usual, as he can see a cursed spirit ominously resting on her shoulder. She replies, "Lately, it feels like there's a weight on my shoulder," not knowing that there is literally something there weighing her down. His conscience gets the better of him, and he deals with it accordingly in the most subtle way possible. So, working off the info that curses aren't common knowledge, Yuji doesn't really know what this object is, and the implications of its power or origination. Sukuna was a demon with the appearance of a human that existed in the golden age of sorcery around 1,000 years ago. The sorcerers of that time were tasked with killing this demon of evil incarnate. However, his body could not actually be destroyed. Instead, the event caused his essence to be divided and embodied into 20 cursed charms in the form of Sukuna's fingers. Of course, each finger contains a ridiculous amount of curse energy, So depending on where it ends up and who consumes it, it could mean really terrible things for humans. This is really insane considering there are 20 of these bloody things scattered around God knows where. Like, if 20 cursed spirits get a hold of all these fingers and consume them, it's going to be the literal end times. On that fateful night, to save his friends and a Jujutsu sorcerer from a powerful curse, in order to combat against this deadly threat, he consumes the finger of Sukuna. Not have been my go-to move, but sure. Obviously a move of desperation, but a really gross one nevertheless. This in turn gives him the power to go head to head with curses. However, unleashes Sukuna in the world once more, with Yuji acting as a vessel for the literal spawn of Satan himself. The caveat of this situation, however, is that Yuji is actually able to control and contain Sukuna in his body, with the ability to have interactions with him. Ringing any bells for anyone? Like Ichigo's inner fight with Hollow Ichigo, perhaps? Fast forward a little bit. Yuji is enrolled into Jujutsu High, taken under Gojo Satoru's wing. The trio of first years, Itadori, Fushiguro, and Kugisaki, are sent on varying levels of dangerous missions to expel curses, wreaking havoc in the area. Jujutsu sorcerers also have rankings, just like cursed spirits, with 4 grades in total. So, Itadori, being a newbie sorcerer, is ranked 4th, while Gojo is considered a special grade sorcerer, so even above grade 1s. Not only do the adventures of these characters start to get fully fleshed out, with more mysteries of this world becoming uncovered, we get introduced to so many knockouts, like Kento Nanami, who I mentioned before. Nanami is a complete standout for me. His sass, brutal honesty, and unintended humor just make for one badass mother trucker, and honestly, in turn, is one of the most relatable characters in the show. The same can be said for Nobara, a badass female character done really well, who doesn't get reduced to solely existing to serve as a love interest for one of the male leads or to enhance the male characters in the show. She has her own ideals, goals, and incredible strength that is extremely prevalent throughout the series that I've come to really respect. And that can be said for quite a few of the female characters in the show, such as Maki Zenin, Yuki Tsukomu, and Mai. Seeing female characters in anime over the years become more than how they can sometimes be portrayed, such as the useless support characters who solely exist for their male counterparts, is something I welcome with open arms. Granted, I haven't seen Naruto all the way through and will likely never do so because of just how goddamn lengthy it is. Sakura comes to mind as one of those female characters that fits into the shallow and annoying remit, even though it honestly seemed like she did have quite a lot to offer, but was just written to be extremely one-dimensional, constantly crying for Sasuke and being really moany all the time. At least that's how I always remembered her. Don't get me wrong, there are quite a few really great female characters that are absolute standouts, like Makoto Kusanagi from Ghost in the Shell, Revi from Black Lagoon, Teresa from Claymore, and so many more. So in that aspect, anime hasn't always been a let's make shitty female characters for shits and giggles. But hopefully we see more female characters in anime continue down this path of being more organic and fleshed out. Moving on to the more thematic elements of what makes Jujutsu Kaisen great. One of the cool things about it is its use of horror, which obviously wouldn't be made possible without the incredible OST that accompanies it and the source material it's based off of. It does it in a way that really makes your skin crawl. As much as I want to wince away from the screen when something horrible happens, I am too drawn in and mesmerized that I just can't. It really is a perfect blend of horror, adventure, mystery, and action. Some of the larger conflicts that come from the curses are from the more sentient ones that believe that they are the true humans. Mahito, who is one of the main antagonists allied with Suguru Geto, believes that he is born from human transgressions. He has absolutely no sympathy for humans and shows many times throughout the season that he is an immature, cursed spirit that torments people for his own amusement. One of his extremely overpowered abilities is called Idol Transfiguration, where he can manipulate and reshape anyone's soul with just a single touch, basically turning them into horribly disfigured cursed monsters. This group's ultimate goal is to completely eradicate humanity, with cursed spirits being the one true inhabitants of the earth. Another curse, for example, Hanami, wants to get rid of humans because they destroy the environment. To give more context, just like Jujutsu sorcerers, cursed spirits also have rankings. Vengeful cursed spirits, for example, are formed by humans after a wrongful death. Diseased cursed spirits are birthed by diseases, sickness, and plagues. And cursed energy spirits are the ones mentioned before around negative energy such as hate, fear, etc. So their motives aren't always so clear-cut. Some curses just want to watch the world burn, to a point where they will incinerate an entire cafe full of patrons just for fun. And by extension, this means that quite a lot of the villains are not relatable at all. They are subhumans that are literally the purest type of evil who commit crimes and atrocities without remorse. So it's kind of hard to find anything relatable about them. Jujutsu Kaisen is about the morally grey no man's land between the forces of good and evil. For creator JJ Akutami, the message of Jujutsu Kaisen is one of truth. They go on to say, it is that no one has the ultimate truth. The good guys and the bad guys. Some seek to kill the hero out of sheer selfishness. The others are led to this decision by logical reasoning. If no one is really right, then no one is wrong either. Each character is guided by their own ethics. In saying that, however, I think the show does like to focus on the morality of man. What do I mean by that? Well, if we think about how curses are usually formed, i.e. negative energy, then I think the show highlights dealing with grief, depression, and death. The message I've taken from Jujutsu Kaisen is finding the best way possible to give meaning to your life, giving it value, and holding on to the relationships that you cherish the most. Life is about adapting to your circumstances and learning how to deal with the cards that you've been dealt. The pacing in Jujutsu Kaisen is very well executed, with little room to actually breathe. I know that sounds a little daunting, but it actually doesn't bother me so much. I'm not really one for loads of filler, and thankfully Jujutsu Kaisen literally has no chill on that front. It's very action-packed and gets to the point very swiftly. It doesn't ever provide slice of life moments, but more so impactful scenarios at almost a breakneck pace. Production value for the show is absolutely through the roof, thanks to Mappa. The style of animation is so mature and just looks incredible, and I cannot get enough of how well Mappa translate their style across the different anime they've brought to life over the years. It's just downright impressive. If you guys remember from my Attack on Titan video, Mappa are the visionaries behind Attack on Titan Season 4, Kakegurui, Dororo, and many more. Anyone who watches shonen anime knows that they're going to get a good dose of spectacular action sequences, and Mappa have proven time again that they are very capable of delivering. If you needed any more convincing as to why Jujutsu Kaisen is based, then please direct your attention to the absolute GOAT that is Gojo Satoru. I don't want to reduce the show to something as superficial as that, but he really is one of the best characters in the show. His personality and jujutsu abilities make him such a standout. He is the strongest jujutsu sorcerer, as he can use domain expansion multiple times a day, whereas most sorcerers can only use that ability maybe once if they're strong enough. Domain expansion uses a barrier technique that creates a separate space where the user can realize their innate domain with cursed energy and trap their target inside it. Once inside the domain, the user's jujutsu is greatly amplified, and any attack inside of it is a guaranteed hit. Everyone loses their damn mind over it when this happens, I think in episode 7. For those of you who absolutely love Jujutsu Kaisen, or after you've given the show a watch, feel like you want more, MAPPA announced this year on Twitter that they would be making a feature-length movie titled Jujutsu Kaisen 0. The movie follows Yura Okotsu, who is haunted by the spirit of childhood friend Rika, who tragically died in a car accident. Her spirit is out of control, completely cursed, and manifests into a monstrous entity. Rika protects Yura against his will as she causes immense bloodshed to keep him from harm's way. Jujutsu sorcerers attempt to help Yura by enrolling him at Jujutsu High, with the hopes that training him will help control Rika. The movie is scheduled to be released on the 24th of December 2021, so not far away at all. Sadly, there is no news on when the second season of the show is likely to arrive, but at least we have a movie to hold us over in the meantime. Well, that about wraps it up for this video. I hope you've been given some insight into what makes Jujutsu Kaisen so popular and why you should give it a go. Thank you guys for watching, and now a special thanks to the following patron pledges for supporting me. Without you guys, this wouldn't be possible. Thank you to the following founding Titan patrons: Lethan, Carlos L, Michael S, Darkhip, Tucker, Casey E, Mad Bob, So Bored with Sorcery, Lexian, Gangsol, Tavi, Suns, Enki, Cornelius, Ivan the Man, Wheatley, Kaljackie, and Librarian. And thank you to the following Jaeger patrons: Ginger Tenguin, The Mr. Brown, Yosef, The Warney, The Smell of Bacon, Dovikin, Big Ol' Me Pie, Zach, Deterran, Jarky, Starscream No Scope, Chin Bonda, Witty Comeback, Luck, So Far So Good, Fly Hedgehog, Kearney, Tamor, Demi95, Graham B, Fluffy Llama, Sunbart, Brett B, Algid, and Moo Binsky.